All right, we are back, and this time we're going to be talking about the NFC South, which, just like the AFC South, is going to be a little bit of a chaotic division where the winner is going to be decided probably the final week of the season. Let's start with talking about the team that should have had the number one overall pick, the Carolina Panthers. Of course, they traded that a year ago with Chicago, and now Carolina is kind of in a weird situation. Last year was absolutely disastrous for them, considering kind of what they gave up to get Bryce Young. He did not play really well at all. I mean, it was a very poor situation last year for Carolina. So the hope is to just be better than you were last year. You're looking to give Bryce Young some help by bringing in Deontay Johnson and Xavier Leggett. You're also hoping that the production comes from Chuba Hubbard a bit more. You want him to continue the level of play he had last year because like this team needs some kind of consistency to it. And if you can get Chuba Hubbard to play back up to a high level, you have Miles Sanders who needs to improve his Carolina production, get him back to the Philly level. Deontay Johnson comes in with alongside Adam Thielen and Xavier Leggett to provide a receiver room, which is all right. I mean, it's serviceable for what you have to work with. But the thing is, you had a lot of salary cap money, and I do like that you went focus on the offensive line a bit more because that was also an issue. You bring in Robert Hunt for a massive deal at the right guard position. But the O line still needs quite a bit of work. It's still going to be a rough year for this offense, I think. Even in bringing in a new coach in Dave Canales, who's going to have his work cut out for him. And at this point, just gotta hope that Tepper gives him enough time to at least attempt to build this team how he wants it. I think the biggest issue is going to be kind of the patience of Tepper because, I mean, the defense isn't that terrible. J.C. Horn, Xavier Woods, and Dane Jackson make up the secondary. And there's definitely questions for sure, especially in that front seven after trading Brian Burns for pennies on a dollar compared to what you were offered for him at the deadline. But, I mean, it's Carolina. They're going to take some time to get to a decent level. I expect them to be better than they were last year, but that's mainly just because they were absolute garbage last year. Now let's talk about a team who also had a confusing offseason with the Atlanta Falcons. And if I would have been making this video before the draft happened, I would have been going off on how amazing the Falcons did this offseason. Because, I mean, they did a lot of good during free agency. Bringing in Kirk Cousins is great. It's a big deal for someone coming off of an Achilles injury. But it's a massive improvement from what they had last year in Desmond Ritter and even Taylor Heineke, even though he's still on the roster. And Raheem Morris comes in for the head coaching position. Zach Robinson is the offensive coordinator. It was reported today that they're going to have Kyle Pitts play a duo role as both receiver and tight end. And the fact that it took 3 years into Kyle Pitts' career to get that kind of action in the NFL is absolutely fucking insane because that's what made him such an elite caliber player coming into the NFL from when he was playing in Florida. It's a Shanahan slash McVay style of offense as both of these guys are coming from LA. And it should be better than whatever Arthur Smith had going for it. I expect the key playmakers to actually get the ball a bit more. Bijan Robinson is going to have an increase of a workload, which is exactly what you're looking for. Drake London's going to be involved a lot more alongside Darnell Mooney and Rondell Moore. You even bring in Ray McLeod to be kind of a receiver for, maybe even a return man, so it's not terrible. The receiver room is pretty good considering kind of what the rest of the division looks like. But the main thing is getting the ball into hands of your playmakers. I even put Tyler Algier on the list of playmakers you want the ball in their hands more because I like Tyler Algier. But yeah, definitely like Bijan Robinson should get the majority of carries. Kyle Pitts and Drake London should get the majority of targets. These are your star players. These are your playmakers. You need to get them the ball. I don't know why it took Atlanta that long to realize this, but Arthur Smith he was something when he was there. Raheem Morris is defensive minded. He was the DC in LA last year, so an already solid defense is now getting a better leader, at least in the coaching staff wise. So I'm expecting good things out of them. The front seven is led by Grady Jarrett, who's been solid since he entered the league for Atlanta. And they still have AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates to make up the secondary. Like Atlanta's defense is going to be solid, just like it was last year. I don't expect much out of that much to change. But then we come into kind of the main impact, the main focus for the preseason for Atlanta, and that is what they did in the draft. They need Michael Penix to come out here and have a great preseason to make that draft pick worth it. Shortly after they made the pick, the reports were that the plan is to have a Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love style of relationship between Cousins and Penix, to where Cousins were going to play out his contract and then Penix will step in. And that's for Green Bay, that's not a bad idea because Green Bay had success with it in the past, and Jordan Love wasn't 24. Cousins, you just paid you just brought him in on a massive contract, and then you spend a top 10 pick on a 24-year-old rookie who has some injury concerns. And again, is someone who would probably start right away on a team like Minnesota or Denver. So I don't know what that plan was. I don't know what their future plan is when it comes to Penix. I just focus in on what it seems to be the plan for this season, which is Kirk Cousins getting the start and Kirk Cousins leading this team. They're going to be in contention for that division. And honestly, there's a chance 2 teams from this division make the playoffs, and I can see the Falcons being one of them. Now on to the team that is in so much cap hell for the past 5 or so years, the New Orleans Saints. They're still dealing with that cap hell situation, and building this team, I'm sure, is tough for that front office. They're trying their best, is all I can really say. Derek Carr is still there to get the start. They bring in Spencer Rattler to be kind of the main guy. At least in my opinion, is going to be who I'm going to have eyes on during preseason to see how we can handle that QB2 role. Because Derek Carr, I mean, I like him, but he's not great. And plus, he has a little bit of an injury history. He got hurt. He got banged up during his time in Oakland/Vegas. And even last year, he was dealing with some things, but fought through it. So having a solid QB2 for them is going to be important. You can't be throwing Taysom Hill out there as the quarterback. For as much as Taysom Hill is that Swiss Army knife for New Orleans, he's not a proper starting quarterback. Jamal Williams didn't produce that great last year compared to what got him his contract in New Orleans. And I'm not saying he needs to play like that the Lions Jamal Williams, who had 17 touchdowns in the season. But if he can get back to Green Bay form and be a really solid running back 2 for New Orleans alongside Alvin Kamara, it's going to make a difference for that team, no doubt. They finally move on from Michael Thomas, and to replace him, they get Cedric Wilson and Equanimeous St. Brown. Both guys who have underproduced a lot in recent years. I mean, it took Cedric Wilson till the end of the season last year to get his first receiving touchdown as a Dolphin. It took him way too long for what kind of Miami expected. I mean, Equanimeous St. Brown is a player who's kind of been back and forth among kind of his production when it comes to week to week. He did all right in Chicago. He did all right in Green Bay. So, I mean, Equanimeous, I could see getting there. The thing is, both Cedric Wilson and Equanimeous were buried in depth charts the past couple years, so they're going to get their shots. Juwan Johnson is a decent tight end for New Orleans, but overall, just with the offense, it's meh. As the best way I can explain it, it just leaves a lot to be desired. And the defense is going to try to make up for it the best they can, but I just don't know if they would be able to. They bring in Chase Young in free agency, and then they draft Kool-Aid McKinstry, so it's not a bad additions. But again, it's just the Saints are in this weird purgatory stage, and they're going to be for who knows how long because they're just not in a good situation cap-wise. The main highlight is Chris Olave. If he can take a massive jump this season, then the future is looking bright because he's going to be the key piece for who knows how long. The best hope, honestly, for New Orleans might be getting a little bit of a disappointment season, so that way Dennis Allen can get out of there as well. I feel that you need a change of personality amongst the team. And Dennis Allen comes from the Sean Payton tree. I feel like you just need to get a fresh mind in there to really kind of just realize that, hey, this team is not going to be as competitive as we would want it to be. We need to wipe this slate clean as much as we can and start focusing on a future. Because right now, there isn't much of a future in New Orleans. Now, the final team, the division winners, I have Moroccan New Jersey for this video, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They come off of a great season. I feel like they exceeded. I feel like they exceeded expectations, winning the division and also winning a playoff game. And because of it, Baker Mayfield got paid. You need him to continue this resurgence. And again, Baker is a solid quarterback. Tyreek Hill had him in his top 5, which is obscene, but Baker is a good quarterback. He needs to keep up this level of play and this resurgence. And they're in a good spot, though, besides that. Their defense is still really good, even with the loss of Shaq Barrett, because they bring in Randy Gregory and Bryce Hall. Well, Bryce Hall's to the secondary, but they bring in 2 solid guys to that defense, and it's still a Tampa defense. Tampa's defense has always been a highlight of those teams. Going back to when Brady won his ring, it was the offense put up 30 plus, but that defense was incredible in that Super Bowl and throughout that entire season. I mean, Tampa was a wild card team that year. You go back to 2002 when they won their first Super Bowl. That offense was led by Brad Johnson. So it was a defensive-focused team with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks. Defense has been the identity for Tampa throughout the entirety of the 2000s. And I feel like this offense they have built right now is kind of the best offense they've had when it comes to like a Super Bowl caliber team. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl by any means, but comparing it to their past 2 Super Bowl teams, I kind of like the offense they have now more than both of those. They add in Sterling Shepard from New York to the receiving room, which already has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It was already a really good receiving room, and they add in another solid receiver to it. The tight end room, I guess, could be a little bit of a hiccup, but it does its job like it did last year. They're going to be really, really competitive. And honestly, like they find a way to get into the playoffs, and they pull the right cards and get the right teams to go up against. They could make another deep run, because like again, Tampa is a really, really good team that should not be taken lightly. Todd Bowles is going to have some good job security now because of what happened last year, and he's a good fit for that job. His time in New York for the Jets wasn't the greatest, but he has a great team built, and he proved that he can win in the playoffs. Listen, Tampa is going to be the main focus for this division just because of, it would be Tampa and Atlanta, but Tampa is going to get most of the attention because of their success last year, and they could easily repeat that success. Well, anyway, thank you all for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts down below on the NFC South. We have, 4 more divisions to go through by the time preseason rolls around. So if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Have yourselves a damn good one. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.